This is Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by the Beatles. Let's talk records. It is July 28th, 1966 in the United States. A teen magazine called Datebook hits American newsstands. And inside it is the spark that detonates the end of Beatlemania. John Lennon's quote, republished from a Quiet London interview months earlier, "We're more popular than Jesus now." In March, when the Evening Standard ran the original piece in London, hardly anyone blinked. But now, in the US, especially across the South, the backlash hits like a tidal wave. Radio boycotts, public burnings of Beatles records, death threats, and a band already exhausted by touring suddenly faces a storm they never asked for. But here's the real turning point. They were already done. After years of deafening crowds, chaos, and barely hearing themselves on stage, the Beatles had reached the edge. So in August 1966, just weeks after the controversy erupts, they play their final full concert at Candlestick Park in San Francisco. No more touring, no more stadiums. The Beatles walk off stage and into the studio forever. And from that decision, one of the greatest albums ever made begins to form. After the final tour, the band takes a break. Paul McCartney travels to Kenya with roadie Mal Evans. On the flight back, Mal picks up a food packet marked SNP. Salt and pepper Paul jokes. The joke mutates, Sgt. Pepper, and suddenly the idea crystallizes. An alter ego band, a fictional group that frees the Beatles to be absolutely anything. A psychedelic brass band from another world. This becomes the doorway into a new Beatles, liberated from expectations, stage limitations, and even their own identities. By late 1966, the Beatles begin recording at EMI Studios, soon to be Abbey Road. And now, for the first time, they have unlimited studio time, no tour deadlines, and total creative control. Paul pushes the band toward a grand, unified concept. The influence of the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds hangs heavily over the sessions. George Martin later said, "Without Pet Sounds, Sgt. Pepper never would have happened." Frank Zappa's Freak Out also shows the Beatles what a concept album can be. Avant-garde techniques, Indian classical music, Motown, chamber pop, it all pours into the record. Despite America already using 8-track machines, EMI still only has 4 tracks. So the Beatles and George Martin invent new methods. Elaborate bouncing between tape machines, automatic double tracking, ADT, Lennon calls it flanging, reversed tapes, very speed effects, massive reverb chambers, and experimental microphones, as well as orchestral glissandos on A Day in the Life. Recorded with a 40-piece orchestra instructed to climb from lowest notes to the highest chaos, and a final chord held for over 40 seconds, sustained with faders at maximum. This isn't just an album, it's a leap forward in recording engineering. EMI demands a single. The Beatles reluctantly hand over 2 masterpieces, Strawberry Fields Forever and Penny Lane. George Martin later called it the biggest mistake of his career, because those songs were originally meant for the album. Imagine Sgt. Pepper with those 2 in the lineup. The songs take shape. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, which despite endless rumors, John Lennon always said the title came from a drawing his son Julian brought home from school. There's also Getting Better, She's Leaving Home, Fixing a Hole, Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite, the latter inspired by John's vintage circus poster. Ringo gets his showpiece, With a Little Help from My Friends. Originally one lyric joked about fans throwing tomatoes at him. Ringo refused, because he knew they would. The cheering crowd between the title track and Ringo's song, those were recordings from their Hollywood Bowl performances, dropped in even though the band no longer performed live. The song was later covered to great success by Joe Cocker in 1968. Designed by Peter Blake and Jan Hayworth, the cover depicts the Beatles as this new alter ego band, standing among a crowd of their heroes. Writers, actors, mystics, comedians, icons. It cost over £3,000, unheard of for an album cover in 1967. Inside you find printed lyrics, which was a first back then, pink red custom inner sleeves, and a cardboard cutout insert. It's a whole world, not just an album. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is released on May 26, 1967 in the UK and US with identical track lists. The world changes. 23 straight weeks at number 1 in the UK, 15 straight weeks at number 1 in the US, 18 times platinum in the UK, 11 times platinum in the US, 4 Grammys including Album of the Year, the first rock album to ever win it. Rolling Stone magazine called it the greatest album of all time in 2003 and 2012 on their 500 greatest albums of all time list. Even when it dropped to number 24 on the 2020 list, the legacy was already cemented. Sgt. Pepper becomes the defining centerpiece of the Summer of Love, a cultural explosion of color, art, experimentation, and new sound. It pushes studio innovation, invents the modern concept album, transforms rock music into high art, and proves the Beatles could reinvent themselves completely without ever stepping onto a stage again. Sgt. Pepper isn't just an album, it's a revolution in 39 minutes.
I read the news today.